You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to the Successful Screenwriter Podcast, where we discuss anything and everything screenwriting. Here we interview successful screenwriters and filmmakers to find out just what it takes to make it in the industry. Just a heads up, this episode is brought to you by my book, The Guide for Every Screenwriter, which has been listed as one of the best screenwriting books of all time by the Book Authority. If you're looking for something that reveals the secrets of screenwriting in an easy to understand and engaging way, then this is the book for you. You can find The Guide for Every Screenwriter at thesuccessfulscreenwriter.com/books. Now, on to the show. All right, welcome to the show. We've got on an awesome guest today, Katie Chonacas. She is an actress. She's been in Selfie. She was in Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans with Nick Cage. And she has a show right now called Couples Therapy, and we're going to talk about it. Katie, thanks for being on with us.
Geoffrey, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Fellow Michigander. Hey.
I know, it's crazy. We could have grown up together. You're so close to me, but now you're in New York and LA, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So you've got such a great portfolio. You've done a lot of things. You're great at your craft. And I think it's fun that you're branching out into these episodes on YouTube with Couples Therapy, and you guys take an improv approach to it. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. With this project, we collectively did Couples Therapy with Nikki Scorpio and Alessandra Levy. They're my producing partners. We've been producing partners for about 5 years now. We've done other projects together. But this one in particular, in March, everything got locked down in March 2020.
Yeah.
And what I did as a visionary, as a creator, I just put my head down and I called up my partner and, across the coast. And I'm like, are you ready? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, this is the plan. This is what we're doing. And we did it on Zoom. We're going to be improv. Why improv? Well, because before I produced and directed projects through SAG, but with everyone being unemployed and everyone, and then when you go through SAG, there's so much admin work. Mm-hmm. There's weeks of waiting, there's documents, and that takes, 6 to 8 weeks. They're pretty effective and efficient in that area. But with everyone being unemployed and everything literally being shut down, I'm like, as a producer, I'm like, how can I pivot, shift, create? And like when you need to cut a budget or if you need to cut something, how can I pivot, shift, and create and make it happen without jumping through hoops? So I thought, I know if I play Katie Chonacas, I can play myself as long as I'm Katie and it's not scripted, because I'm popularizing my brand and my personality of who I am. So then directors, casting directors, writers can see me and say, oh, we want to hire her in this union project. That's the catch-22 of the clause of the union. Because I called to find out, like, hey, how come Ashton Kutcher can play in Punk'd and have his TV show Punk'd, but he's, in the SAG movies? And that's what they told me. So Alessandra, she's not in the union, so she could be the wacky therapist or a character name. And Nikki Scorpio is SAG eligible, which means he can still do union and non-union projects because he's not strictly in the union right now. And I can only do union projects. So,
gotcha.
So that was one of the processes of, doing improv, so we could come collectively do it together without having anyone get in the way of the creativity. Because when you're birthing something from the beginning, you want to fully blah and get it out there and just go at it without any distractions. Right. So, so that's deep diving into couples therapy.
And couples therapy was started obviously for the pandemic. It kept you busy, kept things going. And did you find yourself able to kind of vent a little about any of your frustrations that you were experiencing in real life through the show?
1000%. We have season 1 and 2 on the Sophisticated Psychos YouTube channel. And, it was very relatable. Nikki Scorpio was like, oh yeah, this is great because everyone can relate to being locked down.
Yeah.
And then people who are couples, whether they're, everyone's in relationships and then you're locked down with someone who necessarily, maybe they get on your nerves, or you don't want to be locked down with them all the time, or maybe you're always, giving the excuses of why you're not spending this intimate time with your partner. I'm staying out late at work, or I have a meeting, or you get up early to go work out. But you can't do those excuses anymore. You're actually face to face with the stuff you don't want to be faced with. And that could essentially be your partner. So we wanted to entertain and make something like lighthearted in a dramatic way, but give informational tools, because we're seekers and we're into mystic intuitives like Caroline Myss and Dr. Joe Dispenza, neuroscientists. So we wanted to be educational while still being comedic, right? Like we're internalizing, going through this self-growth reflection stage. And what an opportune time to do so, right? In March of 2020. So we created it in March of 2020. And then we actually shot season 3 that's going to be out.
Oh, good.
We shot season 3. So it's going to be released the last week of November or the first week of December.
So since you're on season 3, how have you seen the show grow over the past 3 seasons?
Well, that's a very good question. So it has legs of its own, and it's an opportunity for anything to happen. So in season 1 and 2, we're seeing the wacky therapist. Right. And then the wacky therapist then turns us on to this person who's like a tarot card reader, who's this like guru. So we take the referral as a couple to go see this like spiritual guru. And so he's a stand-up comedian in New York City. Oh, cool. And so it's going to be, the wacky therapist is going to be like this like guru coach, spiritual guru coach. And then after him, we're going to go back to Alessandra Levy for season 4 and say, oh my God. And then we'll tell her about our experiences. And then our friend Shaman Dirk, who we've talked to in the past, he has an amazing podcast called Ancient Wisdom, and he's a real shaman. So he could be like a really cool person to be on the podcast for maybe season 5. So it's an opportunity for like us to have the wacky therapist as a backbone, but then us be able to go to other people.
Yeah, the wacky therapist, the Alessandra Levy character, is funny because she gives out the absolutely worst therapy advice I've ever seen. And she interrupts the sessions, and then she makes it about her, and it is pretty funny. And the balance between you and Nicky Scorpio works because he's very kind of reserved and doesn't want to speak up, and then your character is more dynamic, so you two play off of each other. When you're coming into an episode, are you guys kind of parsing out like little moments you want to hit, or are you just kind of free rolling it?
So when we came up with the show concept, and I gave her a call, I'm like, this is what we're doing. Then we're like, okay, let's talk concept. So we vetted out a phone conversation, and we're like, let's talk about, we did it in bits, because in improv, there's bits, there's the funny. It's like you introduce it, then you repeat it, and then it's the awkwardness. So it's the 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So we all kind of know the basic blocks of, comedy of improv. So what we did was we came up with ideas of what we were going to talk about. And then we're like, okay, so then we all meditated. We kind of digested it, And Alessandra's like, yeah, I'm going to wear this wig. And, we kind of talk about our concepts of what we're going to look like and like what we're going to talk about. And then we scheduled a Zoom, and we shot it on Zoom during the pandemic. And we literally went for just over an hour, and we kind of feel it out. Like we'll start like, hey, how you doing? We do the intro. We feel the funny. We get the funny. We know there's the funny. There's an energetic thing. We're all playing off of it. And then when it's really full and it's like overpouring, we're like, okay, we got that. Let's move on to the next thing. And then we'll transition to the next thing. And we kind of did that 8 times in a row in one session. And then Nicky Scorpio is a genius editor, where he edited, for web series, it's like 5 to 12 or 14 minutes or something. They're pretty short. So he just we sat down, we looked at it, and I'm like, cut it here, start it here, ended on this, started on this. And then he would edit it. He did all the coloring, all the lighting, all the intro, the outros, the music. So he's the production, the post-production. He killed it. And it's funny because a lot of season 1, we didn't cut out too much. It was like really all there.
That's cool. Do you find when you're doing, I've done a little improv. So what I love doing improv with somebody is that moment where you're feeding off of each other, and you're opening up doors for them, they're opening up moments for you, and the choices are fun. Do you ever find yourself when you're doing improv with Ollie or Nikki Scorpio that you're challenging them and pushing them in moments to see what they could come up with?
Oh, totally, totally. I'll purposefully say something to Alessandra, or I'll interrupt her and I'll be like, excuse me. And I'll be like, did you not just hear me? Or like, oh, what did you say? And
Yeah.
I'll have her repeat herself so she can see how ridiculous she's being. So I'll lean into it instead of like avoiding the elephant in the room. You always like call out the elephant in the room. And it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
That's awesome. And then you mentioned earlier that you're playing a hyped up version of yourself. So when you're doing that, when actors are out there or writers are out there and they're trying to play around with character, what aspects of yourself do you find that you are bringing more to the forefront to create this caricature of yourself?
In this particular role, I would have to say I was very vulnerable. It was very risque. People have not seen me in this way before because I'm not in my best light. And as you were talking about earlier before we got on, oh, you're a bit of a perfectionist. Yeah. So I have that, I've had to combat the imposter syndrome. But I like things in a particular way, but that's the genius of my artistry as well, and my craft and my vision as a director, and the lens that I have for shooting photos is that exact eye. But that exact eye can get you into a lot of trouble too if you don't know when to, take the hooks out. So with this opportunity, as you were saying, because of the pandemic, it was an opportunity to grow and experience something new, that I was very vulnerable. And I actually showed people, it's called your shadow side. So it's like the side you don't want people seeing. It's the shadow work that you keep hidden. But I've been doing so much self-healing and so much work that at this point I was like, rah, here it goes. Like, here it all is. And it's like, get it out of me and let's make fun of it while we're getting it out, right? Shakespeare has that famous quote, right? Like, life's a tragedy or life could be a comedy. So it's like, I'm taking my shadow side, right? That we all try to hide. And I'm exposing it to heal from it, to put it into my artwork. So it doesn't have control over me. So I could actually like develop and grow in a way. And so that was a choice that I did for my character for this role, to show people a side of me that they've never seen before. It was very, very scary, but also very, very therapeutic in a way to go beyond my own emotions.
Yeah. Cathartic. I mean, I'm impressed. That's incredibly brave for anyone to do. I have imposter syndrome myself, so I really feel you on that. And it is a daily struggle. People don't realize it. You work really hard and do everything you can. My cousin Matthew once told me, he said, stop and look at what you've achieved. Like, take a step back. It's so hard because when you are at a particular level and you're just working away, it's almost like you're in a car driving by and it passes you. Like, you don't see it. And looking at your body of work, Katie, truly impressive
Thank
work. You are talented. You are creative. You're bringing it forth and you're sharing your gift. So I know that those words probably aren't landing with you right now, but I believe it. I think that you really have achieved it. And so there is no imposter there. You are creating, you're doing beautiful work.
It lands. I receive it. It lands. Thank you. I almost started crying. I'm very touched. Thank you.
Well, I mean it, because as someone that goes through it, it's hard to feel it, especially when you're dealing with something like that. So couples therapy, it can be found on YouTube. It has its own website, correct?
TheSophisticatedPsychos.com is our brand, and The Sophisticated Psychos on YouTube. And there's couples therapy playlist, season 1 and season 2.
So tell me
it's in a playlist.
Tell me what the Sophisticated Psychos are.
Sure. Nikki Scorpio and I met in 2012, and we've been inseparable ever since. Although I haven't seen him in almost a year, but we're connected.
Yeah.
We have such a deep rooted relationship that, he's definitely a part of my universe, and
Beautiful.
He's great. He has a solo career going on as a musician under Nikki Scorpio. People can listen to it everywhere streaming. And he was doing music, I was doing music. We met in a music studio. That's how we met, through music. And we did some music together called Under the Sophisticated Psychos, and it's streaming everywhere, SoundCloud and everywhere, iHeartRadio, Spotify. So all of our music, and we did music together, and great music. We're not marketing gurus or anything like that, or branding gurus. We're creators. And so since we're both creators, we had our struggles within that. I mean, it takes a lot to be an artist and be a successful artist at that. And so there were a lot going on, not just, I'm an actor. I have my own popular podcast called She's All Over the Place. And I have a lot more going on, and I love music, and it's my passion. I love it so much. And his only thing is music. So I had to unhook and say, hey, like, let's, do the couple. And we were doing Trigger Flaws, Green Beans, other, projects together with TV and film while we're doing the music as well. So all of my TV production projects with Nikki Scorpio, it's all of our music that he makes. That's awesome. And so he has his solo career of Nikki Scorpio. And then I'm releasing an album on my birthday, 11/11, under Kiriaki. For the first time, it's going to be my debut album, just under my name, Kiriaki. And with the kind of music I make, growing up in the Detroit underground music scene, I grew up with all the best DJs as a kid, like going to rave parties
back then. Yeah, absolutely. This is where electronica and techno started.
Yeah. Like Berlin and Detroit, the twin towers of music. So that's my culture, my vibe. So Nikki and I will do music together in the near future under the Sophisticated Psychos, but he's doing his own journey in music. I'm doing my own journey in music. And then we have the production company of the Sophisticated Psychos of Couples Therapy, and he edits and does coloring, and then I produce and direct.
Now let me ask you something. As someone that is local born, you weren't born and raised in New York or LA. You're from Michigan. You're one of my people. So how did you find your way breaking into the industry? Because I mean you worked with Nick Cage and Werner Herzog. I mean, that's huge, right? So what
pretty legendary.
I mean, in some powerful moments. So how did you briefly, get there so that people listening to this can at least hear your origin story a little bit and say, oh, okay, I could see, maybe I can do it that way.
So the thing is, at the initial root of it, dismantle any illusions or any expectations. When, as individuals, when we're kids, we have a sense and we have a knowing. We know what we're destined to do. We know we're special. We know there's a calling. Maybe we get lucky. There's something special and you just know it, right? Yeah. You do or you don't. I don't know. I'm just saying, for me, there was something there that I knew. I knew I was one of God's angels. I knew I was meant to touch people's lives and make an impact in a very powerful way. I knew my voice was my gift and my instrument. My mom would say, "Shut up, Katie, be quiet, shut up." And I'm like, Mom, you're going to see these loud lungs are for a reason, because I was so loud, like now I'm probably being loud, but like, I'm so, when I talk, I'm like, raw, like I just spit it out I'm like bold. I have this powerful force, and some people want you to dim your light and turn it down, and it's true. And for me, it's like, I never cared what other people thought. When I was a kid, I did people please, which was very detrimental for my whole entire existence, and actually it knocked me off the loop of what I'm sharing with you now, of that knowing, because I was so powerful and I was so knowing, and I knew that I would speak my truth and I would be loud, and I ran cross country. So I learned about short-term, medium-term, long-term goals. So I was very healthy with my body. I was attuned to my body, with the intelligence of my body. I was able to get the blood flowing in my brain. I was able to focus and have determination, and what I do as an individual affects the whole for the team, for the collective of my cross country team. And so I applied that to my workforce, and I applied that to life and to humanity. And I always kind of just had those knowings, about me. And so that was kind of my journey. I got lost so many times. I didn't know how it was going to go. I just had faith. I just had to take one step in front of another. And sometimes I would do 11 steps in one day, but you only can do one step at a time. But sometimes I would do like 59 steps in a day. It's just, I was very ambitious. So I was a self-starter. And when I was a kid, independently by myself, while my parents were working, full-time jobs, 8 to 4, 8 to 5, whatever, full time, I'd be sitting contemplating with myself. And I remember when I was a teenager, like a really young, as like a preteen teenager, I knew I was an artist. I knew I was soulful, and I was into Greek mythology and fantasy and play and language and poetry. But I didn't have the business skills, like how I saw some people were into commercial real estate, or, there were lawyers, like
savvy.
Some of them had more, a different business way about them. So I said to myself, I have the culture and the food and these elements. And I knew at a young age, I needed to develop a part of my brain for business. And what I did was I thought it was a man's world. And I had the illusion of looking up to men to mentor me, that they would be financing in my dreams.
Oh.
And that's a whole journey within itself. Because I wanted to be taken seriously as a businesswoman. And so, that could go in so many different directions.
Have you, I'm prying now, forgive me. Having been a young woman growing in this business and having to look up to men, do you find yourself now trying to mentor women?
Yep. 1,000. And I had to spend 1,000%. I've spent so many years, maybe my whole life, but effectively maybe over a decade now, cultivating women relationships where I have women I can call in different areas of personal and different areas of voiceover that I do, acting, just friendship, just, hey, like instead of something happening and me being in my head and not knowing and self-sabotaging and emotionally inflicting myself, I'll now call a friend and be like, hey, it's this weird thing, but this guy just said something to me, or like this person just said this, like, what do you think? And she's like, oh, I would just tell him to do this, or I would just do this, or you have this option or this option. And it kind of vets it out instead of it being like this whole thing,
right?
A domino effect of bad choices. I've trusted people I can go to as a balancing beam to support me on the emotional journey and choices, because, we all need support in the choices we make, because it's about the quality of the choices we make that's going to affect our lives every day and every moment.
Very good. Well, I appreciate your sincerity. Finding your sense of self and knowing your strengths and not giving up is definitely part of the formula of finding your way into success. Katie, I want to thank you again for coming on this show and really being here.
Geoffrey, thank you for having me. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you.
My
Thank you.
pleasure.
And for everyone tuning in, just check me out on chonacas.com. It's my website. I'm on all social media platforms if you want to get in touch.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share in your social media, where you can tag us at The Successful Screenwriter.